For blog number 4, think about the world is your oyster and you have a year and 20 grand to spend. Where would you go and what would you do? The 4 Into the Wild blogs are supposed to build on one another. The first one focused on an experience in nature that you looked at very romantically. And of course, that's one of the main values of transcendentalists, as well as one of the main values clearly of Chris McCandless. And in this blog, it's all about perspective. You could very easily look at blog number 2 and tell the same story, right? Take a waterfall. A waterfall you could look at romantically and appreciate the beauty and grandeur of it, while you could also look at the power of it and how something so powerful is at odds with mankind. And the purpose of blog 2 is to kind of temper the way that we look at nature. Some people can overly romanticize it and get it into their heads, like McCandless, that what it offers is so important that you can risk your own personal safety to a degree that isn't all that intelligent in terms of risk management. And of course, what happened to McCandless is evidence of that, although the book tries to show how a lot of people do that sort of thing, and that McCandless in particular was just very unlucky. On to blog 3. While blogs 1 and 2 can deal with simplicity and how nature can help to simplify our lives, blog 3 came down to simplifying our lives in terms of economizing material possessions in particular, where you took a budget and tried to cut out unnecessary frills that you could live without, especially considering that you were saving up money in order to go do something else, and avoiding debt, which is something that plagues many Americans. You can just Google the average debt of an American, not including college loans even, and a lot of people are massively in debt, which again limits your freedom. And what we have to consider as well is that when Thoreau moved into the cabin at Walden Pond, he did so on July 4th. What better day for it? Because he saw that as his own personal independence by going after something that he really believed in and really taking self-reliance, another main value of the transcendentalists, to another level. And it also required a lot of courage for him, because it was very nonconformist of him to decide to live that way. That you can imagine the stories passed around at Harvard when this Harvard grad decided to go live in the woods, much like somebody would live in poverty. Why would you give up all of the comforts that people work so hard for just to go live that way? And that's certainly something that we see in Into the Wild, where McCandless was raised upper middle class, had the American dream served to him on a golden platter, and he applied himself. He did well in school and was prepared to go do great things, but he decided to cast that all aside in order to seek whatever path he was looking for. And it requires you to be a nonconformist to do it, because there's a ton of pressure from everybody to conform and to live your life the way that American success is normally defined. So blog number 4 takes the idea from blog number 3 that you've saved all this money, $20,000, which I know isn't that much in terms of living for a year, but it is possible. And I wanted to avoid having people go on trips that involved resorts or cruise ships and things like that, because no, you couldn't do that. And it would be difficult to live in many parts of Europe for $20,000 a year, or with only $20,000 a year, if that's your only income. But yes, it is possible to travel that cheaply. No, you can't stay at resorts, you can't stay at nice hotels, but much of the rest of the world offers more opportunities, first of all, because of the disparity of wealth from one nation to the next, that you can sort of take advantage of that as an American and travel somewhere like India or a whole multitude of other countries and spend very little per day and live for a year for not even half of that $20,000. That's part of it. Or also to, now that your life has been simplified down, simplified even more to follow some kind of a dream that you have and to only spend $20,000 in a year. Blog 4 asks, what would you do with a year of true freedom? You can imagine that this happens after blog 3, that you've saved up money, you have $20,000. What would you do with it? Most students are compelled to write about travel, which is fine. Obviously, that's something that I love to do, and that I've taken that to a pretty great extreme. However, know yourself and really consider, is that something that I would want to do for that length of time? You can always go on shorter trips, but when you're traveling for that length of time, you're away from your family and loved ones. You have to find somebody to go with you, which should be very difficult. This is asking what you would do, not how you would gather other people together to go do it. So you would kind of assume that you would be alone much of the time. Could you handle that? And is that really what you want out of life? Often people go searching for answers in their travels and come home to find that the answers were inside, or the problems were inside, and they're not going to be solved by outside forces. So consider something different. I put on the prompt a few options. Many of you at this point have taken 4 or 5 years of a foreign language, and many of you can't speak very much of it, but it's in there somewhere. It's not that your teachers haven't done their jobs or that you don't know any of it. It's just that you can't do it quickly enough in order to really speak, but it's in there and needs to be developed more through immersion. To go live somewhere for a year, that would do it. You would be fluent, and maybe even beyond that, maybe in a higher level of fluency. If you spend an entire year after you have a really strong base like you have, that would make you more marketable when you return. It would allow you to do something and prove to yourself that I can do something difficult, like learn another language. It's not at all easy to do. That might be what you want to do for a year. Or maybe you want to pursue a dream, that you're a dancer, you're a baseball player, you're whatever, and you want to go and try it out somewhere in the world. A musician. Go to the streets of some great city and perform on the streets. These people aren't bums and hobos. They're musicians. A lot of times people look at them as that they're all homeless or something like that. That's not the case at all. They're doing what they love and hoping that people give them good tips. You might decide that you want to go live on a farm and fulfill that fantasy that some people have, which is a bit romanticized in a lot of people's minds. But to learn, you can go and work on farms in places like New Zealand and learn organic farming techniques and connect yourself to the earth in that way. Try to think outside of the box and not just traveling. If you do decide to travel as your answer, then consider that you really want to talk about what you'll be doing in these places. That's more important than just checking off a bunch of places. What are you trying to experience there? Some people will put down like 6 or 8 places that you intend to go as if that would fill up the year. Well, it would fill up the year if you spend a couple of months in each location, and what you would want to do there and how you feel that would allow you to understand your place in the world better, or whatever your goal is. It might just be to relax. Maybe you want to go and surf for a year somewhere, or ski for a year. During the summer in the Northern Hemisphere, head down to Argentina in the Southern Hemisphere and just do that. It doesn't have to be something that necessarily is working toward making more money in life or being more marketable as an employee. Everything doesn't have to come down to that. Maybe you just want to go be a beach bum for a year. It's perfectly fine for this prompt, and you just need to be able to explain like what makes you want to do this. You may work during this time, but it should be that you're working with something that you really truly enjoy, rather than just working toward a career or something like that. So if anybody has any questions or anything, please send me an email and I can direct you. But I am going to post this final blog for Into the Wild, and hopefully we come up with some great answers.